Good morning. It's still morning. It's 11:57. So good morning, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Bryan coming to you from the country in McCormick, South Carolina. I am not going to be able to have our usual 12:30 Google Meet with you guys today. I have another meeting scheduled with Mrs. Clyde and all of the other third grade teachers, and we have a lot to talk about the end of the school year. But I didn't want to leave you guys without anything today. So what I want to do really quickly is just continue our discussion from yesterday. Yesterday we had a great discussion about the 3 types of angles. And if you can see my desktop, I'm challenging you guys to identify the angles that I spotted yesterday. And just like our discussion yesterday, I tried to find angles that are not as common, things that you might not normally notice when you're walking around your yard or walking around your house. So I took some interesting pictures. This is just to serve as a review for you guys, but it's also kind of a challenge to see if you can spot the angles that I saw. So on this first slide here, it just has a review. Right in the very center on the bottom shows a right angle, and remember, a right angle measures that perfectly 90 degrees. And then on the left of the right angle, you can see if I take that right angle and I make it a little bit smaller, if I bring it inward, it's going to measure less than 90 degrees, and that's going to give me an acute angle. And then on the far right, take a look at the hands on the clock. If we were in class, I would challenge you guys to identify the time on the clock. I'll give you a minute to decide. I hope you came up with 11:21. So take a look at the hour hand and the minute hand, and I hope that you can see what would classify those hands as an example of an obtuse angle. If we look at the right angle beside it, we can tell that it's wider and greater than 90 degrees. So without further ado, I'm going to take you into some pictures that I took, and just like the clock, I'm going to give you guys some time to think before we share answers. So moving along. As I told you guys before, the property that we live on used to be a pig farm years and years ago, and we have several old barns on our property. This is one that we used to store a lot of lawn mowers and yard tools, and when my husband is working on his motorcycle, he has all sorts of parts all over the place. It's kind of his man cave, as some people would call it. So there's lots of examples here. You'll notice that the planks that make up the front of the barn here, I would consider those parallel lines, parallel planks, simply because they're moving in the same direction. They're not intersecting or crossing, so that would classify them as parallel. But my challenge for you is to take a look at the roof line here. Remember my birdhouse yesterday? My birdhouse had an acute angle, but I want you guys to look at the roof line of this barn and see if you can classify it. Would that be a right angle, perfectly 90 degrees, an acute angle, less than 90 degrees, or an obtuse angle that is wider than 90 degrees? Take a moment to think. I wish I had the Jeopardy music. I hope you came up with the answer of obtuse. This would be an obtuse angle, along with the lovely parallel planks on the front. Moving along. My car. You guys might not know which car in the parking lot was mine, but this is an example of some of the angles and lines on my car. On the far left here, I want you to focus on the line that separates the edge of this blinker with the top of the bumper here. So take a look. Follow my mouse here. How would we classify that very unusual angle that's been in front of me for many days now? I just never stopped to think about it. I hope you came up with obtuse. I can almost naturally see where the right angle would be, and I can see that this is wider and greater. Here's my dirty wheels. They need a bath. I need to wash my car. Lots of angles hiding in this picture. However, I want you to focus on the little spokes in between the sections of the wheel. Think about what a right angle would look like. Think about the obtuse angle to the left. And how would you classify this hidden angle within the wheels of my dirty car? Take a moment to think. And I hope you came up with acute. Those are all acute angles. It looks like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let me count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 acute angles hiding in the wheels of my dirty car. Moving along. You know I love trees. We have trees all over our property, and I find so much joy being outside and watching the sun come through the trees. But yesterday I was on a mission to find angles. So these are 2 different trees. The one on the left is the branch of a dogwood tree that's in my backyard. And when we think about branches on the trees, we don't really think about geometry. But if you look closely, look at how the branch of this dogwood tree has grown. Again, picture the right angle, perfectly 90 degrees. Picture the acute angle that's smaller than 90 degrees. And then think about obtuse being wider. How would you classify the angle that's being formed by this dogwood branch? I would classify it, my friends, as an obtuse angle in my backyard. All right, on the right, this is the back side of the barn that you saw at the beginning of the video. So if the front of the barn has that wide obtuse angle, guess what? The back side is as well. This is still our obtuse angle from the beginning. But look at the red tip tree that's growing behind the barn. Look at the branches. How would you classify that angle behind the barn? Again, always picturing the right angle. I always start with the right angle, and then I think about what separates acute from right and obtuse from right. I hope you came up with a lovely acute angle in that red tip tree. All right, here are some of the beams that hold up these very old barns. You can definitely tell from this picture that this is a very old structure. It actually needs a little bit of rebuilding and reinforcing that we need to do, and there is so much geometry going on up here. But the part that I want you to focus on is the beam here in the center going to the left and the beam going to the right. There's actually quite a bit of angles that comprise this structure that's holding up the barn. Take a minute to focus first on this angle. I took this line, and I was just focusing at this one angle, and it's the same on this side. How would you classify that angle? Oh, I skipped it. Gotta go back to it. Take a minute to think. I would classify both of these angles as a perfect right angle on either side. However, if you take that thinking and you focus on this angle from here to here, I hope you can tell that that's an acute angle. And we can even extend our thinking even further. We can take this angle from this line to this line and see how small and acute that angle is. We've got all kinds of parallel lines and right angles in the roof, but just looking at this beam, we've got a right angle and 2 acute angles. All right, we have been cleaning off the roof of our house. So we've got our handy dandy ladder that's perched up on the side of our house. And I hope that you will agree with me that these angles are pretty easy to identify. First of all, is this a rectangle or a square? And then the second question would be, what angles do you see between the rungs of the ladder? To me, that's an easy question. I'm going to say that I see 4 right angles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Behind it, guys, look at the rectangular bricks. Each of those has a pair of parallel lines. The top and the bottom are parallel. The left and the right are parallel, and creating 4 perfect right angles. Every single brick there has 4 right angles. All right, one more quick picture. I think that this is the last one. Yep, it sure is. When I opened the barn door that you saw in the beginning, these are some of the boards that hold the door up, keep it strong. Again, you can tell that this is very old. These are original boards from when the barn was first built. But take a look at the interesting structure formation that was made between these wooden planks. Reminds me of 2 Z's on top of each other. Thinking of those two figures placed on top of each other to add strength to our barn door. Look closely and tell me what angles you see. Here, 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 and here. I see 4 of what kind of angle between those planks? And I hope you came up with acute angles. So again, boys and girls, I love seeing your faces. I wish that today wasn't such a busy day between getting your progress reports ready to go home, getting those just right for you to see, and also a very important meeting with Mrs. Clyett and all of the third grade teachers. So if you need me this afternoon, I'm going to be in my meeting probably realistically between 12:30 and probably close to 2. If you need me, you know I'm just a click and a message away. I won't be available during that meeting, but if you're struggling with something, if you have any questions, please reach out. I hope you have a good day, and I'm looking forward to seeing your Flipgrids, guys. I watched those before I went to bed last night, and you guys are just amazing. You all have different ways of explaining your thinking. Some of you wrote things down on paper. Some of you showed examples in your houses. And just seeing you and hearing you was just wonderful for me, guys. I love seeing you guys. I miss seeing you in person. And so if you haven't had a chance to share on Flipgrid, please do. Not only does it show me that you understand what we're learning, but it also makes me feel closer to you. So have a great day. I'll be thinking about you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.